need saviors. We can save ourselves.
All right.
And so I am here to represent. When I talk about representation matters, I mean for all of us.
As an elected leader that has been in the city for some time, I've worked really hard to represent all of our community. And we have had many different issues that have come before us. And I make sure I listen to our community and that we are solving those issues and those problems. Like, for example, we had an issue with a couple of contracts that came before city that were voted down. My colleague here worked for Councilwoman Sidibaka. I agreed on the policy conversation, but what that resulted in is now we have no community correction beds to help people acclimate that are coming out of our prison system. That's important. I want them to be successful when they come out so that they are not ending up back in the prison system. I think this is an issue where ensuring that we continue to work to address the needs in our community. We have people that are starving in some of our neighborhoods, meeting their needs for access to food, access to capital. All of those issues are issues I've worked on, and I will continue to do that to make sure that African Americans in our community, their needs are being met just like everybody.
Ms. Brough, is that right, Kelly
Yes,
Brough? Thank you for making it. We want to at least give you an opportunity, a 2-minute introduction, and then we want to give you 1 minute to answer the question from the floor. And the question was from Pastor Felicia Malone Flowers. The question is, why do you want to be mayor during such a racially tumultuous time where we have the Karens, the Zimmermans in our black community, and we just want to know why, under these conditions, would you want to run for mayor? 2-minute intro, 1 minute to answer that question.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be late today. And I'm sorry that I had to be. So I'm Kelly Ruff. I'll start with a 2-minute intro. For me, like so many families, frankly, your congregations, my family has faced great challenges. And I think for a large part of my life, I felt shame about what my family has gone through. And today, I think instead what I feel is strength and respect for my family. I lost my father to violent crime. My family received government assistance when I was a kid. My husband struggled with addiction, and my girls and I lost it to suicide. And I think today these are issues so many in our city are struggling with. And I think we need a mayor who not only can understand those issues, but can also help manage a city through them. And I would include the racial issues that I see as part of that needing to help lead. And my background, I feel, has prepared me for this. I was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. I was John Hickenlooper's chief of staff when he was mayor. I've been the head of HR for the city. I've even served as a legislative analyst for all 13 members of the Denver City Council. And the combination of my personal experience and professional experience, I think, has prepared me for this moment in this office. And that's why I put my name in, and I would love to have your support. I also really appreciate the question of the racial divides. My husband was Native American, my kids are biracial. There's no question in my life early as a white woman, I was exposed to how different their life was because, frankly, of their skin color. And I'm very sensitive to not only the inequities we continue to have in our economy, but also the urgency with which we need to address those. I run because I think the only way we can address those issues is somebody who is willing to listen to the hard truths and is willing to make the tough choices about how we change that reality in our economy. And I've done that work when I was at the chamber, and I'm committed to doing that work as mayor, and I'm happy to share more of those details and would look forward to further conversation about how we do it.
1 minute on that.
Thank you. I should have started by saying that I am a woman of faith. I am a Christian. Growing up, I grew up in a pretty difficult household. My sister was incarcerated, in and out of incarceration for 30 years because of mental health and substance misuse. She faced sexual trauma when she was 16 that we didn't know about. I was born shortly thereafter. When I had struggles with my family, I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and quickly realized that the household I moved into with my stepmom was not one that supported me. In fact, they told me that I should give up any hope of going to college or being successful, and I just knew that was wrong. So I walked the block and found myself at Mount Olive Baptist Church. And while my mom is a woman of faith, she always told me that we would find faith in our own time. I walked in that church, I was baptized shortly thereafter, and I spent the rest of my time in Louisiana going to that church at least 3 times a week. When I thought I was alone, I realized I was not, and that God was always with me. That pushed me to do more for community at all times. I feel like my purpose is to do the work, and that is what I do. Can I have 30 seconds? Okay. Thank you. The reason why I'm doing the work now is because we deserve someone who's going to fight for us every single day. We deserve someone who understands the racial strife that's going on and call it out and fight and not just let it happen. That's what I'm committed to doing every single day, because that is what my faith tells me I must do.
Thank you. I think there are 2 parts to the question. For me, the first truth is that desperation drives division. We know that when people struggle, they look for people to blame those struggles on. So when you have a hard time being able to find a place to afford to live, or be able to keep your family safe, or be able to even find housing at all, that's when we start to see division. So I think part of this is about, one of the ways we focus on this is by solving the core problems the city's facing around housing and homelessness and crime. But the second is about engaging in honest, hard conversations about racial division and about the institutions we built, about what impact they have. And I'm aware of my place in that conversation as a white man. It also means, I think, a lot of times the conversations that are hardest that we have are among white communities who have not had some of these hard conversations about race, and need to be able to have more honest ones about the way that those institutional advantages have played out over centuries, and the way that we have an obligation now to fix them. So for me, I've spent a lot of my career in that conversation, and feel part of the obligation to lead it here is to be able to have that conversation in all of our communities.
Mr. President, our time is running out. We have the city council candidates that's coming. So with that said, some of the questions that you've asked from the floor, from the community, really don't have time, but some of these we want to ask after we have the candidates that will be in the runoff. So we don't want to do any personal addresses, and that's what we've decided not to do. But we will be coming back at a follow-up, and I just need to raise some hands. If you are in the runoff, do you promise to come back to the alliance? Okay. That's a slam dunk, I know.
Thank you.
That's a layup. Well, we haven't finished yet. I do want to just ask and say yes or no. With the XL franchise agreement that's going to expire December 31st, 2026, will you be willing to make sure that you address the issues of the increase in the utilities from XL? That is a pressing question, and we want to make sure if there's a yes. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Johnston, down the road.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely a yes.
This is being recorded, y'all.
Okay. And the last question is, and then we'll give you maybe 30 seconds to close out, because we need to get the other candidates out there really being patient. This is from Dr. Frank Davis of the Zion Baptist Church. If elected, will your administration help the African American community as the faith base, and as we address the health disparities in our community? Can I read that again? Did you get it? Okay. If elected, will your administration help the African American faith base as we address the health disparities within our community?
And you want us to do 30 seconds on this and 30 seconds closed together?
Yeah, if we can do that. Hold on a minute. Did you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it.
Reverend Davis, let's ask, what is that?
Was that your,
Since I asked the question, I can speak for myself. It is not, will you help? How will you help
oh, okay.
with the disparities in the African American community when it comes to health?
Yes. And I'm glad you asked that, sir, because I actually said earlier that we need a face.
And Terrence, it's gonna be 30 seconds answer, 30 second close.
Okay, well, thank you. But like I said earlier in my answers, before you even asked that question, we need a faith-based initiative here in Denver. The bedrock of the Black community in Denver is this church. It's all of the churches in the Alliance. So of course, with any initiative that any of these churches are going to do, I would definitely do that. I was raised in these churches. My family members still attend this church here. They'll be here this Sunday. And as far as closing, the reason why I think that I will be the next mayor, the best mayor for Denver, and hopefully the next mayor, is because I'm concerned with what's really affecting our community, guys. The future of our babies. Not talking about affordable housing, not talking about sales tax incentives that are confusing to people that don't come to the Black community. We need to make sure that when we're not here in the next 12 years, if Terrence Roberts doesn't win, if one of these people are on here for 12 years, that your granddaughter, your grandson, your niece or your nephew is alive, they're thriving, and they can afford their rent, and they can afford their schooling. That is why I'm running for mayor. Vote for Terrence Roberts, TerrenceRobertsForMayor.com. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I have tried. So a health issue is homelessness. I have tried to get contracts to churches to have like safe to park programs and to have reentry programs. Reentry actually started with the faith community, I mean, Charity's House downtown, etc. And slowly over time, they were phased out through funding. So we know that one of the top indicators of health disparities is lack of affordable housing and, of course, health care. The reason why I believe I will be the next mayor is because I know what the city needs after 30 years as a community leader in a holistic approach. I've been a college professor, I've been a service provider, I've been a nonprofit executive, I've worked for the city. So all of those experiences, bringing them together. But most importantly, we do need a leader of color. We need a woman of color leader in this city. We have never had that. And reimagine what we could do if we are actually creating solutions for ourselves.
So the answer to your question is yes. And for me, health includes access to daycare, access to healthy food, making sure we don't leave communities in food deserts. It's addressing all of those issues and needs of our community from that health perspective. It's holding polluters accountable. I did that with the SARCO. I did that on the I-70 project. I think it's important to make sure that we continue to look at how we close those gaps and make sure that we are holding accountable folks like a SARCO and businesses in that regard. I'm here to ask for your support. Again, I've worked on all of these issues. I've worked on big and small projects, making sure that we extract affordable units from big developers and working to support our nonprofits who are creating the lion's share of affordable housing, which is a critical part of why we're here today in terms of the crisis and the need for affordable housing.
You're all going to think we're in cahoots. The reason I was late is I was meeting actually with employees at Denver Health to talk about the disparities we see in our educational outcomes today and discuss the operating agreement and what the next mayor can do to improve the health outcomes. But in addition, I also know this. Nothing improves health outcomes like a really good job where you have health insurance coverage. Home ownership, we know actually, and the stability it brings, improves health outcomes. When I was at the chamber, I helped build an entire arm of the chamber that focused solely on the inequities of race we see in our economy around home ownership, which we know people of color are less likely to own a home, I have an entire proposal as mayor of how we've changed that. And I also focused on the inequities we see in income. And we know the less money you make, and we're overrepresented, people of color are overrepresented in lower salaries, the less likely you get health insurance. And that improves health outcomes. And I would focus on those kind of things to ensure we change that as well. And I'll leave you with this. I've never run for office before. I'm learning quickly how to do it. And I'm not gonna run for another. And I would love to have your support, because I got deep.
Thank you. Yes, I will focus on this. As a Black woman with asthma, we know that we disproportionately have asthma rates. But additionally, my grandma moved here from Water Valley, Mississippi, because my aunt, uncle, myself, and my cousins were here. She had severe dementia. My aunt, uncle, and cousin are all doctors. We checked her in to CU and shoes. When she realized that she was quite afraid of white people giving her care, she became a bit difficult to stay. And they kicked her out. And when my uncle came to pick her up, they told him that they would call the police on him if they didn't remove her from the hospital. She went home, she fell, she never recovered. She's no longer with us. That happened right before the COVID pandemic. No matter what degree you have, you still, as a Black person, have worse health outcomes than anyone of any race, of any money, right here in Colorado. My mom is in a senior care facility, and I'm afraid for her every single day. Every day. When Black people started to die from COVID, I am the one who got with Black leaders, women leaders across the country, and started tweeting and writing about the fact that we can't get our data numbers around why Black people are disproportionately dying and not getting tested. That was the email that was heard around the world. I got a lot of trouble from my good friend, Governor Jared Polis, but the data started coming. And that's when we started talking about disparities. It did not happen before we did that work. I will continue to lift up and speak about disparities, but I will fight to make sure that Colorado, and Denver specifically, closes that gap. Not just talks about it, but closes it. For my family's sake and for all of ours.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, for this question. I think there are two important parts. One is we know the most stable part of social determinants of health is housing. Make sure you have access to stable, affordable housing. That's why I led on passing Proposition 123, which will put $300 million a year every year into Colorado, making sure people can afford to pay the rent and not have to fear that every month the rent's going to get jacked up and they can't stay in that home. The second is, yes, how do we take courageous action when we know there are health disparities? During the pandemic, I ran an organization called COVID Check, which was the largest COVID testing and vaccinating organization in the state. And when we saw massive disparities in access to the vaccine, we took courageous action. We actually spent $1 million to put people out on the streets, to walk the neighborhoods with the greatest population of people of color, sign them up for vaccines, bring mobile vaccine sites to those neighborhoods, get good transportation, and make sure we dramatically increase the vaccination rate. This is going to take real courageous action, committed to equity, and committed to delivering those results every day, and that's what I will deal with as the next mayor. I'll just add, thank you for having us. You know, my favorite verse is Micah 6:8, which is what is asked of you, but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. I've worked hard to walk humbly as a partner with you over these last 20 years and look forward to the path to continue that walk over the next day.
Thank all of you for coming, and our president's going to have the last remarks. But those of you that are city council candidates and also the DPS, would you check in with Pastor McBride so she can get your name so we can get the tents set up for you? We're going to break for about 10 minutes. Amen. But we're going to have the last remarks. Thank you again, all of the candidates that are here for the mayoral. I want to thank God for our city fathers, you, Dr. Peters, Dr. Asen Phillips, that's here also. Amen. And Dr. Rodney Perry. You're too young to be one of the fathers. Stephen Newberry, I want to thank God for you. And Dr. Seal Morgan Smith. God bless you for being here. Brother Jeff, I know he had a question. Can we do that real quick? If we can do that, candidates, we have a question from Brother Jeff, and then we're in the hands of President Mays, and then we're going to break for about 10 minutes. Brother Jeff.
So my question is real simple. It's yes or no. And if your answer is yes, just it's about Parkhill Golf Course. Are you yes or no on 2-0? And have you received money from the developers, West Side or Andy or any related entity as it relates to that development?
Great, Mr.
That's
Johnson.
the question. Yes on 2-0. Yes, I'm a yes on 2-0. Sorry, yes, I'm a yes. I'm a yes on 2-0, and I have a contribution from Andy. I knew Andy before the Park Golf Course.
I am not taking a position on the Park Hill Golf Course, but what I would say is that I did vote for the conservation easement. It has to go to a vote of the has to go to a decision of the judge, and I will support that. I am very concerned with the way that the Park Hill Golf Course has moved through this community and how disingenuous I think some of the conversations are happening around the Park Hill Golf Course today. But I will let the people vote, and then I will implement what the people's will is.
Have you taken any contributions?
Sorry, I have not taken any contributions from Andy, nor have any IE associated with my campaign, taken any dollars from any associated groups as well.
It took me a while. I had to look at the community benefits agreement. I do raise the flag that I still believe, only a judge can lift that easement according to state law. That said, after reviewing the community benefits agreement, I'm a yes, and no, I have taken no money from anyone associated with it.
So I'm the only one on this body that actually had to vote as a member of council to move this to the public, and I did vote in support of moving it to the public. This question was asked about have we received any funding from anyone from Park Hill Golf Course at the Botanic Gardens. My answer was no. I've learned since then that I did receive contribution from Andy. I don't even know Andy's last name. I don't know him, but I do understand he's affiliated with the organization, but that's my answer.
And are you personally a yes or a no? Your vote?
My vote when it comes to the vote of the people, I am a yes vote. And because this project is going to provide affordable housing at 25% more than any project we've had in the city, and because it will also have 100 acres of the 155 as open space, and it will do a grocery store, and all of that will be tied to the land, so that if this owner sells it, the next owner has to comply with those community benefits.
A no to both questions, and as a candidate, if you don't know who's giving you money, what does that tell us about you as mayor? In fact, we found out we got a contribution from, I think, John Hickenlooper that we've returned. I want to make sure that we are not being influenced by the same power system that has been at play. I have been a part of Safe Outdoor Space Center. It is not a good deal. We should not be satisfied with promise. If we had social housing, we could get up to 60% permanently affordable, meaning we never pay more than 30% and not on a fluctuating AMI. It's a bad deal. It was made in the back room, and that's not how the city of Denver should be doing its housing policy.
I am a definite no on that redevelopment. For one, the city and the residents of Park Hill have already decided that this is supposed to stay an easement. We sat here for a whole hour talking about black business and black equity. How are we gonna have a black business if there are no more black people in spaces where black people will spend money with black businesses? I think it will exasperate gentrification of Northeast Park Hill. I've yet to see a traffic study. Have you driven down Colorado Boulevard going to I-70 lately? Have you tried to go down Martin Luther King Boulevard from Quebec to Colorado Boulevard lately? You gotta make a U-turn if you want to go the opposite direction. You can't even go that direction anymore. So I am a definite no on the development. What is it going to do for black people? And you guys already heard what I said about affordable housing. Affordable for who? We need more public/social housing. So I am a no on that development. Vote for Terrence Roberts if you want to see Terrence.
Did you receive money?
I have not received a penny from any developer at all. I am not the developer's candidate.
Thank you. We'll thank you to the candidates. We'll resume at straight up.